Today we're going to be talking about something very interesting, as over the course of the past couple years in Yu-Gi-Oh, we've been noticing that cards have been getting retrained. And I kind of want to talk about these certain cards and what Konami could probably be ramping up to, because it's very suspicious that certain cards are getting retrained that were to a video game end boss. So if you guys don't know, I really love Forbidden Memories and a lot of that whole entire series of games, because today we're going to be talking about a certain fellow in Nitemare. Now, Nitemare is the final boss of things like Forbidden Memories and the False Bound Kingdom. So, as we can see, he is part of the Illusion group. Now, Illusions are a recent addition to Yu-Gi-Oh! And as we could tell by the Millennium Ankh at the top of the forehead, and just how his design is, because he is the embodiment of all 7 Millennium items. So let's get into it and let's talk about the ones that have been reprinted first, and retrained, I should say, because there is a few of them. And honestly, we have things like Blackluster Soldier getting retrained many times over the course of the 25 years into things like Envoy the Beginning, Sacred Soldier, Chaos Soldier, and all of that, even getting a reprint of its prize card from 2000s, which is very, very insane to think about still. Then we also have things like Mikazuki no Yaiba getting a retrain in the Moonfang Dragon, Trihorn Dragon, and Sinjin Jin getting a retrains in the Caveman that awoke after Millennium, and Momentalin Horn Dragon. Also, along with things like Cosmo Queen getting Cosmo Queen, the Queen of Prayers, and Skull Guardian getting Skull Guardian, Protector, the Voiceless Voice. Now, if you guys haven't noticed, these are all cards that are pretty much the big boss monster, final large ritual, and other type of monsters. Because one of the things that people haven't really noticed, Cosmo Queen, Trihorn Dragon, Senjin, Mika, I believe, Serpent Night Dragon, all have actual ritual versions in the video games, along with other cards like Gate Guardian itself, and Gate Guardian has gotten a reprint in Gate Guardian Combined. Now, a couple other cards that haven't been reprinted or retrained yet, being Takraminos and Seigaru. I'm sorry about my pronunciation on that. It's been a little bit since I've talked about this card in any sort of discussion. But a lot of these cards are all basic normal monsters, or even just plain ritual monsters. We even have Zera the Mantier and Super War Lion. So there's quite a bit that Konami still has left to do. Now, what do I expect in the future? A lot of these cards will get a one-off retrain or deck based around them, judging on how Skull Guardian happened, because they took 3 rituals and combined them together. But for a lot of the other ones that they don't have anything for, they would probably just get an effect remake like what they've already done. Which is kind of interesting, because they've done Serpent Night Dragon, but we haven't gotten Seigaru yet. And we also haven't gotten things like Takraminos, which is kind of interesting to say the least. Now, what other cards do I think will get a retrain in the future? Well, first off, we have Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. This is a card that was used by Weevil Underwood in the anime, but the final 6 in Yu-Gi-Oh! Forbidden Memories pretty much all had this card. It's a 3500 beat stick that you can just summon without even doing anything. And you also have things like Black Skull Dragon being a huge impactful card in the actual game, along with Meteor Black Dragon, because this is the one card that you do have access to in card drops from things like Meadow Mage and Jono. So realistically, I see Red Eye support coming very soon with how trends are going, because they're going deck by deck, card by card. And the reason why I brought up that Nitemare has the Eye of Illusion is because we also have been getting illusion cards over the past year, I believe now. Yeah, it's been a year now since Duelist Nexus came out. And some of the cards we've seen are retrains to Golgoyle, to Moon Maiden, even Fiend Reflection has a retrain, and also Tau the Chanter. So we've seen older cards getting retrained that deserve the illusion type, and we've also had video game imports like Cornfield Kotol and Mirror Sword Knight, because some of these cards were pieces that can combine together. So what does this have to mean with everything? We are getting more and more video game imports, which is very nice, which I do see them doing at least 1 or 2 video game imports every core set for now, because there's quite a bit that they can do, quite a bit of pieces they can do that kind of join together, like they've done with Kotal and Sword Knight for the Chimera deck that released in Duelist Nexus. And even they could do the one-off ones that they've been doing, like Towns of Shirlane, or tie them into an archetype like the Millennium archetype. So there's quite a bit that they could do. Now, a few of the cards that we have seen, they can also have 2 different versions, like Fiend Reflection, because Fiend Reflection is one of those cards that has an alt color. As we can see, Fiend Reflection 1, they took from this one, but it also has a number 2. So realistically, there's 100 cards that were an actual recolor, but they go off of the first one, the earliest in the database. So what does this all have to do with what I'm talking about? Well, we've seen Nitemare be treated as this final boss character, and it's very interesting to say that he is the one that Konami's going to be going after, probably on a side set release or a main set release, because we've been going down all of his cards that he had in his final deck. Now, remember, in the game, Dark Knight had spells and traps in his deck, but Dark Knight was pure strength, power, all monsters, and that is where he would be summoning out things like Gate Guardian, even Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon was one of his cards that a lot of the Final Six use, because it's one of the strongest cards in the game, quote unquote, at the time. So we've seen retrains to Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon in Neo, Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, and even Alternative Ultimate Dragon. So that's already checked off the list. But I wonder what you guys think on what cards that they could definitely retrain in the future, because there's quite a bit that they could do just looking at Nightmare's deck and what he ran, because it is very, very crazy of how powerful cards he has. And believe it or not, Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon was also a ritual monster back in the video games. But anyways, I hope you guys did enjoy this video, and I want to see what you guys think, what should be retrained next into a single card or an actual deck. But anyways, I've been Bolt Spider. I hope you guys did enjoy, and see you all in the next video.